Good evening, fellow morons. How are we all doing today?
Good.
Good, guys. You will first of all be excited to see that Sean is actually on screen this week. The star of the show has decided to actually grace us with his presence, but you will see a brand new face on the screen as well. Just a big welcome and introduction to Chris. Chris has joined us from his Instagram account. He's been speaking to us for a few weeks now, and he got to pick this week's movies. Chris, if you want to introduce yourself, plug your account, tell people to go follow you, crack on, mate.
Aye, go follow me. What we watching tonight, my Instagram account. Just sit and review movies when I'm kind of sat on the couch watching the telly. I just kind of watched movies for years and thought if I kept sat in the house for lockdown for months, I might as well kind of do something semi-productive and just write stuff down. And that was a few months ago, and it's maybe picked up a 1,100 maybe in terms of followers. So if you want to find out more, just dive in, go and follow me, and just listen to me talk shit about films.
Happy days. Do you know what? I'll give you a little bit of your due here. I read your review on Free Guy, a movie.
Did you enjoy it?
A movie I had absolutely no intention of watching. I watched it today and thought it was brilliant.
Aye, see, they're the kind of films I like. I had no intention of watching it either. I had 2 hours spare in the afternoon, thought, fuck it, I'll find it on. And I thought it was alright. I thought it was really good.
It's a weirdly ridiculous film that is actually quite funny. Ryan Reynolds is brilliant in it. So I don't know. I know the morons haven't watched it thus far, but it's on Disney now. So jump on and watch it. It was actually really enjoyable.
If you're not into Ryan Reynolds, you're not going to get much other than what he typically does. But he's good in it. If you enjoy what he does, he's good.
Has anyone else seen it?
No, I didn't know it was on Disney. I thought it was just out of the picture, so I didn't know it was on.
It was popped up a couple of days ago onto Disney. Again, it prompted me to go in, and I was like, I'll go in and watch it because Chris spoke quite highly of it, and I've seen a few things of people saying actually it's one of the best films I've seen in a while, and I just couldn't picture why it would be a good movie. But defo one to watch. But we're not here to talk about Free Guy. We are here to talk about Terminator 2 and Goodfellas. But before we do, we always just let you know what the results of last week's movies were. We are not sure if Hunter is still with his partner or she's got rid of him. Almost Famous was scored at an incredibly low 2.63 if you were to ask Laura, but not if you asked any one of us. And Kill Bill 2 was the other movie that was watched at a 3.17 for our leaderboards. How did that conversation go then with Laura, Hunter?
She didn't even accept my score. She's like, "Oh, you've only rated that high because of me." And I was like, "No, I actually enjoyed the film. You know, I enjoyed it. I sat and watched it with you."
So even Laura knows that you were shiting yourself.
But then she also said that she wasn't upset because we seem to have a genuine hatred for mostly all movies. So.
Well, hopefully Chris will bring some positivity
she was quite
to us.
relieved.
I think Chris
it wasn't one person then scoring it all, but I'd imagine even if we all scored it less than 2, she probably wouldn't have batted an eyelid.
Well, we've watched. This is 2 blockbuster movies that we've got to discuss this week, so I'm kind of hopeful that we're going to have some good things to say about them. Chris, you picked Terminator 2. We're going to start off with Terminator 2, and I'm going to pass it straight on to yourself.
I am. When you just kind of gave me the chance to pick a big kind of set of films, it's Terminator 2 is like to me. Terminator, I think it's the best sequel ever. I fucking love it. I do. It's everything a sequel should be, especially a kind of big blockbuster one. It kind of takes what the first one did well, and then it just kind of goes full throttle and totally enhances it. It's got a better villain. It's got far better special effects. It's got a better story. Sarah Connor's a fucking savage in it, whereas she's a bit of a shitbag in the first one. So she turns into a proper savage. John Connor's a good character. He kind of rubs off well with Big Arnie. So it gives you so much more. The soundtrack's fucking dynamite on it as well. So it does everything that the first one does well, but it just gives you so much more. And you don't get very many good sequels, especially sequels that I think are better than the first one. So I think you can maybe think of maybe 3 or 4 that are potentially better than the first one. But Terminator 2 to me is the best sequel ever. I fucking love it.
I'm going to echo that, because that was something that I've said before, especially when we watched Terminator 1, that I felt that Terminator 2 far surpasses that movie. And Daniel, I believe you went onto Instagram with that exact question. What was some of the feedback?
Yeah, so more than about 60 odd percent agreed that it was the best sequel ever, but some people disagreed. So the other options we were given from people were Aliens, better than Aliens. I didn't buy that one. The Dark Knight, which maybe make an argument for. The Godfather 2, and Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, obviously.
The only ones that I can really think of that I thought were better than the first one. I agree with The Dark Knight, but I mean Batman Begins is good, but I agree with The Dark Knight. Aliens, I like Aliens, but I don't think it's that much better than Alien. They're two completely different films, Alien and Aliens. But the other one I thought of was Toy Story 2. It's better than Toy Story, but it's not as big a leap as Terminator 2 and Terminator. It's fucking great. The villain in it's, oh man, he's so much better than the first one. And for a scrawny wee guy who's so petite, the fear that you get in him is, he doesn't even have much dialogue either. He just walks weird. He just comes across you like he's terrifying. It's quality. And the CGI, I watched it last week, and the CGI holds up now. Even what was it, early 90s? It still looks impressive now. It's superb.
I'm going to throw a wee bit of trivia in right now, because I know it's going to trigger Sean. But you mentioned about the way that he walks in there, Sean. I've read this and I had this in the trivia highlighted specifically for you. So it says Robert Patrick patterned himself after a shark on the way that he moves in on his prey.
Obviously, Chris might know the context behind this, but that's just more nonsense. But how is that resembling a shark? Just like a guy walking.
Anyway, I thought I'd throw that
this
in
there.
there.
This is what I hate about it. Like, see, some actors, man, they're so up themselves. Just like, that's a load of shit. Just walk. You don't need to see you like a shark. You can shut up, man. Load of nonsense. That's just knocked off about 1.5 of my score by the
later, man.
Well, Sean, let's hear more about your thoughts from it anyway.
I much prefer Terminator 2 to the original. I actually watched Terminator 2 obviously many years ago before I'd ever watched the original. I have no idea why, but it was kind of just kind of echoing what Chris has said as well. It's just for me so much better. It's got a much better villain, as he said. He is quite terrifying. I remember being scared of him when I was younger. The thought of somebody to be being able to just kind of like morph through objects and turn into other people and all of that. It's just, as a wee guy, it's quite terrifying. I think Arnie's better in this one as well. He's obviously, he just kind of comes across as, there's a wee bit of a more kind of comedy value to him in this one. In the first one, he was a lot more serious, obviously, because he was the bad guy. Whereas in this one, he's a lot more just obviously likeable because he is the good guy. But no, I would agree. It's definitely much better than, well, not much better, but it is a lot better than Terminator 1 for me. I would choose to watch this one every day of the week over the first one. But I've not really got much negative to say about it. It's, as has already been said as well, in this day and age, it does hold its own. It still looks good. It doesn't look daft or anything with the CGI or that. It still comes across really well.
According to James Cameron, it is very little CGI in it. There's only 42 shots across the whole movie that have got CGI involved in it. Now, for me, right, I love this. I think there's so much memorable scenes for this over the other movies, like when he's on the motorbike and he's firing his shotgun to open the gates and he's going through the gorges and the big lorries chasing after him and stuff. That whole scene for me is probably one of my favourite in the whole movie. I think it's brilliant. The only thing that pissed me off throughout this whole movie is John Connor's voice.
Why?
When they're having that, oh my god, it's so high pitched.
He's a wee boy. You want him like, you want him a big deep voice, and he's like 12-year-old.
Well, he's playing a 10-year-old, but he is 13. So a lot of his lines were redone over and top of what happens in the movie, so it's like essentially dubbed in. But for me, it was just an over-the-top, high-pitched, really irritating voice that so many of the scenes where he was having his lines, it kept throwing me, it kept pissing me off. But yeah, that's my only real thing that annoys me in it. There's so much good things in there. I was absolutely terrified of Robert Patrick growing up, and still watch it, and he's a scary character. Melting through bars and stuff like that is so creepy, man. But you're spot on, Chris, was saying about Sarah Connor, how much stronger she is in this. I think Linda Hamilton plays her brilliantly. I really enjoyed it. The scene where she gets she's in the mental hospital and stuff, you really get to see some good acting. She's fighting against the guards. The guy hits her with the baton and stuff in the stomach. It's a really intense time, but you genuinely feel sorry for her because she obviously went through that experience previously. Nobody believes her. She's just a psycho, and that's probably what would happen even today if it was like the machines are taking over. But right, in you get, pal. Here's your straitjacket. You're getting sectioned. But
there's probably a lot of folk rattling about their straitjacket because they can't get on Instagram and that. So.
What did you think, man?
Of the film, I enjoyed. I mean, I feel like I'm just going to be repeating everything that's been said. Kyle, you stole my thunder. I literally wrote down that scene with the motorcycle and the truck chase through that. It's like probably the one thing that I remembered from this growing up. I think I had it on, similar to Sean. I had this on tape. I didn't have the first one when I was younger. I think going back because we've watched 1 and 2 recently. I think 1 is a bit more darker and maybe a bit more scarier for Wayne, however old I was when this came out. But I remember having this on tape and reminding it, going back and watching it again. I just loved it as a Wayne. Again, between this film and obviously Goodfellas, what we're reviewing, it's probably 2 of the most quotable, or you would obviously the Hasta La Vista and I'll Be Back would be the iconic quotes that folks still use and have been sort of pop culture references for years after. As you said, the chase and the action going on between Arn and the T-1000, it's superb. It's just like, it's no mind-blowing, it's no great dialogue, whatever, but it's got you on the edge of your seat, and it was proper throwing me back to like almost pretty much like the first time I watched it as well. And it's sort of similar to Robert Patrick with the scariness, but you see that bit where his arm just turns into a knife, and it just goes through the stepdad's skull whilst he's standing in the kitchen. Remember being totally scared of that as a Wayne, and again, it's just, there's no, you can't fault it. I mean, there are maybe plot holes that folk can go in and pick and whatever else, but that doesn't diminish the quality of the film for me.
No, that's fair play, and I deliberately not looked at the goof section of like IMDb and stuff because it typically has really pedantic stuff on there what they pick it up on for timelines and continuity and stuff like that. But no, you're absolutely spot on. Burnsy, you potentially this might be one of the few films you'd seen before.
Yeah, it's like I must have watched it when I was a teenager or something because I couldn't really remember much of it, but I remember I'm sort of being able to go into other people's bodies and then walk through objects. That's when I remembered I had watched it, so I hadn't remembered really a lot whatsoever. I thought the beginning of the film was really good in terms of, though we'd obviously watched Terminator 1 before, like a few weeks ago, is it wasn't as if you could have went into Terminator 2 without seeing Terminator 1 and you would have picked up everything. I think there wasn't really anything that needed refreshed or whatever because it done the start really well. The mental hospital scenes with Sarah Connor, they were done really well. The 3 main characters, as you've all touched on, thought they were tremendous. You've stolen the thunder with John Connor, Kel. I couldn't put my finger on it in terms of what I didn't like of it. I think it might have been his voice. It was just a bit bone for me. I think it was just, I don't know if I've got a thing against like young actors because obviously I berated the one last week as well and Laura's choice as well. So I don't know if that's just me. The only sort of downsides I had was the inclusion of Dyson in the film. That to me just bored me really. Like to me they could have just taken all that off. It didn't really add much to me. It probably lent itself to the story, but I kind of felt it just, that, I don't know, say it was 15, 20 minutes, it kind of just like, I could feel myself sort of switching off a wee bit at those points. But there's just, I just say the visual effects and the soundtracks were really well done. and I was surprised at how much I enjoyed the fight scenes, because usually when I watch a film, I'm kind of like, I want more of a storyline, whereas that did keep me really involved in it from start to finish. So I think all round it was a really good film, and that's only a couple of minor things to me but that's just personal preference more than anything else.
And how did you manage to get through it without there being a little love triangle and a baby coming into the mix?
Well, that was a struggle. That was part of the problem with it. You could have had Linda Hamilton, and maybe no sure if Arnie or T1000 was the father that would have talked to offer me.
Fuck's sake.
John Connor's dad. That's what I end up doing, the seventh one or whatever.
John Connor's dad's actually a machine. You obviously touched on Edward Furlong, his character being pretty annoying and stuff. It was his film debut, Burnsy, so it was his first one.
I'm just in here in defence of Ed Furlong. Like, I think he's a cool wee cunt in this. Like, he's just a wee guy. He's a cool wee guy. And see, when I was about the same age he is in this movie when I first watched this movie, I just thought he was quite a cool wee cunt. He liked the same music I like. Had long hair. I had long hair. So, I mean, cool. Aye.
I don't really get why the fact he's got long hair would make you like him. If you had a skinhead, you'd be like, nah.
I relate to him as a wee guy. But I was a guy that had long hair and that.
Well,
but anyway.
He's got a skinhead in American History X, and he's still annoying in that.
See, I like him at that as well.
Because you're comparing, because you're always going to compare actors and actresses in the same film, so obviously somebody that's that age isn't going to be up to the standard of the other ones, so it could just be part of that reasoning as well, that when he's on screen you're like, oh, I wish it was somebody else, because a lot of actors and actresses are so good in it. Maybe that's why I'm not a fan as much.
Chris, what's your thoughts on before we go to Daniel, what's your thoughts on Ed Furlong's performance, as he seems to be getting a kick in here?
Yeah, I don't mind him. I mean, I knew it was his film debut, so you can give him a little bit of leeway because it's his first film. As a wee guy, I always had a soft spot for him because he wore a Public Enemy t-shirt, and I love Public Enemy. So a wee guy cutting about with Arnie on a motorbike with a Public Enemy t-shirt that was all for me. I enjoy it. I think he's really good, and I do agree with you though that there is a kind of 15-20 minute part in the middle of it, and the one I watched last week, about 1.5 a line in. It was I think I did accidentally downloaded. It was an extended cut. It was more than 15-20 minutes. So there's quite a few more scenes where it turns into like half an hour, and it's just the pace is rampant, and then there's this one wee bit in the middle where it just kind of dies for about 20 minutes, and it doesn't take anything away from it, but you definitely notice it. Kind of watching it back again, you definitely notice there's that wee bit in the middle that just kind of it just loses a wee bit of momentum. But I performance-wise, I thought everybody was really good at it. There's nobody that annoyed me.
Just us being harsh.
We last week were Almost Famous and watched the extended version. 10.5.
So some of these did. So just on the voice, because I know that's I'm talking about there, but basically from this through the length of time it took them to film the movie, his voice had broke, so they had to redo a lot of his lines because his voice didn't match up throughout the movie. So that'll be like an extended versions where you'll have that difference between it, and it's maybe why to me it stands out from the rest of the dialogue and the noise in the movie, because it's probably been added in at a later date. And they also had to film him loads in holes alongside Linda Hamilton because he became taller than her during filming.
How long did they film it for? About 6 years.
I know.
What is Linda Hamilton that she's getting kind of outgrown by like 11-year-old or 13-year-old?
He's 13 at that point, but he used to play a character between 9 and 10.
I always thought he was a bit.
Daniel, give us your thoughts.
I fucking loved it. Like, I don't know, this is a big part of my childhood. I wrote down a few different scenes because I knew you guys would all come in and say loads, and I'd be left with fuck all to say. So I wrote some. I see the bar fight at the start. It's a much better start to the one at the Terminator. I think, like what Chris said earlier, this takes everything Terminator does and then does it better. It's just like the exact same movie almost, but done to a better degree and every level. Yeah, when the guy puts the cigar out on his chest and he doesn't do anything, and when he's naked, he just kills him off. Fucking love that. Sarah Connor doing the chin up, and it just shows you like an instantly a full change in her character. And that's why I think this film, why everyone loves it so much, is because it develops all the characters for the first one. Even after Cyborg, his character develops all the way through it. I think you get like drama in this, you get loads of action, you get fucking sci-fi robots, you get emotional scenes. See when he picks his thumb up, I'm surprised nobody mentioned this, but that was like get me every time when he picks his thumb up and he goes down into the lava, man. But yeah, I think it's great. One of my favourite things about this is that Arnold Schwarzenegger must be one of the top villains ever and top heroes ever for being the same character. He's a great villain in the first one, but he's an amazing hero in this one. He's like fucking Stone Cold Steve Austin.
You want to just take all my trivia there, So, the Terminator is the only character to be listed on the American Film Institute's 100 Heroes and Villains as both a villain and a hero. There you go. And Al Pacino and Arnold Schwarzenegger are the only two actors on the list to play a villain and a hero, but Pacino was two different characters.
There you go. But no, I think it's amazing. The soundtrack's amazing. Everything you remember for Terminator is mostly for this one. When people say all their favourite bits, they're all for this. They're no, maybe the first I'll be back in the first one, but apart from that, everything else that's memorable about Terminator comes for this movie, I think. And the fact that it's aged so well, and I watched this at the right time. I had a Terminator action figure. I had the Mega Drive game. I was like all in on this. It's fucking class.
Happy days. Does anybody want to add anything else in this before I start piling out some trivia? Because it's an uncomfortable niceness that we're giving all to this movie.
Just one thing that nobody's kind of quite mentioned. What I think that a huge difference as to why I love this more than the first one. See, the first time the two of them meet. So it's the hero and the villain. The first time the two of them meet, they shoot fuck at each other straight away. Shotguns, you name it. So it's an actual. They get to fight. So there's the first one. They're kind of Arnie's obviously chasing the hero. He's human, so they can't ever fight, because if they were to fight, it'd be a fucking one-sided fight straight away. This one, the two of them get proper fighting, and it lasts the whole film. As soon as they meet, they're shooting each other. There's action. It's straight away. And I love it. I think it's far better than the first one.
What's class about them fighting as well? Because Arnie alludes to the fact that he can't beat it. So he is there, and he knows he's not going to beat it, but he knows that he has to protect John Connor at all costs, and whatever that took is whatever it took.
This might be in your trivia as well, but there was apparently a lot of controversy at the time. This was one of the very first trailers that gave away a major twist in the plot. So apparently in the trailer for Terminator 2, it shows you that scene where he pulls the gun out for the flowers and he turns and he saves John Connor and shoots the T-1000. Apparently they showed you that trailer, but it was so that everyone knew that Arnie was a good guy. So they wanted everyone to know in advance, but like it's a bit of a fucking spoiler, like.
Nah, fair play. I mean, there is some quite good trivia on there. I've got one bit that I'm going to keep towards for later, but before I do that, so there was it won a few Oscars, no surprise. It won an Oscar for Best Sound, Best Effects, Visual Effects, Best Makeup. It was also nominated for Best Cinematography and Best Film Editing. A couple other bits in here. So it was the first film to break the US $300 million at the international box office. What else have we got here? Denzel Washington turned down the role of Miles Dyson. He said, "No offence to James Cameron, but after I read the script, I thought all this guy does is look scared and sweat."
He does.
He sweats a lot. That scene where he's panting.
I could have touched on that. I don't know if you can help me, but to me, like, I know obviously it was to help with what was going to happen in the future and that kind of stuff, but to me it just didn't add anything to the film whatsoever. Like the bit about them going into the office and having to destroy all this stuff. Like, to me, they could have just missed it out completely, or at least reduced it a lot more. That was one of the things that, as I'd sort of briefly mentioned, just kind of was a downside to me of the film, but one of the very few that I found. Don't know if you've got any thoughts on if you thought it was needed, or
I think my least favourite part of the film is all that part. It kind of slows down a bit for me there, but like the first hour of it is just absolutely brilliant. It doesn't really take much away from me.
Although once they get to the office block and they ram a motorbike into a helicopter, it gets really good. But the kind of nut bit to that is just, it's complete. It gets really, it just drags the pace down a wee bit.
I think as well, like you said, Kel, is you can definitely see why I turned it down, because it would have been a pretty useless role for Denzel Washington to be in.
It's quite a small role in terms of what he would do. I know I think it's quite important towards his script, because obviously they're trying to make the difference with the whole Skynet thing anyway, and it leaves it open as well to add more in.
I think at this point James Cameron wanted to build have loads of sequels and build a big never-ending time travel cycle universe thing, and then turns out all the sequels have been fucking garbage.
Yes. Well, stop here if you're watching Terminators. Don't go any further.
This is where the Terminator franchise finishes. The end of 2.
Don't watch 3, please. The only other thing I was going to add in just now is that the first choice to play the T-1000 was Billy Idol. But Billy Idol knocked it back. Billy Idol was the first choice for that.
That would have been the funniest. Can you imagine Billy Idol?
Yeah.
Like 80s pop sensation Billy Idol.
Yep.
As a white wedding Billy Idol.
Aye.
I've actually just went on Google. I've put in Billy Idol, and one of the top suggested search is Terminator.
There you go.
Listening to you, Sean.
Trending in the Central Belt, Billy Idol and Terminator.
We've just overtaken WhatsApp and Instagram on the trending on Twitter. Cool. Sean, give me your score first, please, mate.
As I said, I enjoyed this more than the first Terminator. I really should keep a note of what I score stuff, because I can't remember what I scored it, so I'm going to need to try and... I'm going to give it a...
It's in the top 10.
Is it? Fuck.
Yeah, the first Terminator sitting 8th on our top 10, guys.
Is it? I'm going to need to score this like a 5 or something, so I didn't make a right arse of myself. I'll need to say... I'll give it a 4 and hope that I gave a Terminator a 3.75.
No way you did that.
Give it a 4. Right, before we go on to other people's score, I've got one last piece of trivia now that Sean's score's locked in. Robert Patrick mimicked the head movements of an American bald eagle for his role in T-1000.
An eagle and a shark just cutting about chasing Arnie.
Eagle shark.
See, that's two polar opposites there. Like, that is just a load of nonsense. Honestly, man.
Listen, if it was Jake Gyllenhaal that was doing it, Sean, you'd have scored it a lot lower, eh?
I watched one of his films last night. Absolute pish. He was a call centre agent.
Oh, I watched that last week. It wasn't that good.
Oh no, I didn't like it.
Wait till it's my choices and you're watching Donnie Darko, Sean.
I'll be off that week.
You're off Mace week. Chris, now I know part of your Instagram says that you don't give ratings, but we're going to ask you for a rating. So anything.
I try not to. It's not because I don't enjoy it. I don't, and I watch you guys, like I try and watch you guys every week if I can get away with work. And you say the same thing every week. It's I'll need to think about what I'm rating it because I've rated something else. So what have I rated Terminator, right? So I don't enjoy it. I end up spending more time thinking, what the fuck did I rate this? Rather than writing what I think about it. So I get pure panicked about it and overthink it. So I just tend not to do it. This, other than the wee 15-20 minute bit that kind of drags the pace down, to me, it is the ideal film. I think on your Instagram page I gave it 4.5, but I'd go 4.75.
4.75.
I don't think there's much wrong with it. If that wee 20 minute bit had kind of been taken out, it's a perfect film. But 4.75.
Happy days. Burnsy.
I had a look to see, what we'd put it on Instagram before, and I'm quite sure it was like a 3.95 or something we had. But I know that I think I was one of the ones that rated it lower than the average. So I'm going to go the same as Sean and give it a 4. As I said, it was just that 15-20 minute scene in the middle, and it's not my kind of usual film that I would really enjoy. But there was very little that I could say was poor about it. So a 4 from me.
A 4 coming in from Burnsy. Hunter?
I'm going to echo the score of my other two ones and give it a 4 out of 5 for me. It's just, although there are some things within it that isn't my usual cup of tea, but there's still enough action and suspense that you don't need to be into sci-fi geeks analysing anything, that you can still enjoy this for what it is. So 4 out of 5 for me.
And a 4 out of 5. And then we'll come to Daniel.
Like I said, I fucking loved it. I'm gonna 4.7.
A 4.75. And I'm going to come up with quite a high score as well, but just slightly below what Daniel's given it, and I'm going to give it a 4.5. I can't remember what I scored it last time, but it's nearly up there as one of the best films that I think we've watched throughout the whole list. Bungie, how much better is it than No Country for Old Men?
Off the scale.
What else would you...
That question there, that's why I don't like rating films, because how do you compare a film I think No Country for Old Men is brilliant, but how do you compare those two films? It's like when I made the list, it was I gave in Borat. How do you compare Borat to Terminator 2 or a No Country for Old Men? It's just, I hate comparing films. It's so hard.
I try not. Everyone gets a bit distracted by what we're previously scored stuff. I just try to score that how I feel about it. And sometimes we end up with stuff a lot lower than I want it to be, which is annoying. It annoys me afterwards.
But and there
will be blood.
There will be blood.
Why has nobody mentioned how low Star Wars is?
Let it go.
Do you like Star Wars, Chris?
Look at my profile photo on my Instagram page. It's me, Kylo Ren.
There you go. You can come back.
You take the next Star Wars, and we'll take a week off, the 3 years. 4 years, sorry.
Chris, Star Wars got given a 0 from one person in here.
What one? No, not. So what film was it?
Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, it's the best one as well.
But see, you got us to watch that one first, so there's no context there for anybody that doesn't like Star Wars. So you just basically, it's like watching Terminator 2 before you watch Terminator. It's pointless. And for somebody that hates Star Wars, it's not for me at all. So that just annoyed me. And every week since then, he's brought it up. And
better, because I'm better. I'm incredibly better. Right, Bunzy, give us an overall score, please, before you upset me.
Okay, so it's a 4.33 overall.
A 4.33, which would then take it on our leaderboard, and in between Fight Club and Wolf of Wall Street. So it doesn't break the top 3, but it does break into the top 5. Thoughts?
I would say that's fair. Like, it's pretty bang on where I would put it from my point of view.
I'm just surprised Wolf of Wall Street's in the top 5.
I know, that's the issue, because it's one of those that nobody really disliked it. So a lot of the best films I think we've watched, at least one person fucking hated it. So it drags it right down to the middle of the table. Everyone fairly enjoyed at least Wolf of Wall Street, and
no, I feel
it's too high for me as well, mate. I think it's too high.
I think I gave it a 5. I love it.
I gave it a 5. So yeah, I'm sure.
There was a couple of 5s there.
Like as we said, like for your Bunzy, it was your first time seeing it. I think the first time you see Wolf of Wall Street, it probably is up there 4.5 and 5.
Yeah.
Because we've all watched it a few times, it kind of dilutes the scores a wee bit, and then you realise it's actually maybe not as good as maybe you put up against some other classics.
Aye, I've definitely watched it too many times.
Aye, me too.
Well, there we go. We get a 4.33 and a new move into the top 5 with Terminator 2. Thankfully, I'm glad it went above Terminator 1, that's for sure. But let's talk about the next movie we've got on the list that we watched, which was Goodfellas. I had quite a couple of funny interactions on Instagram with some of the followers regarding Goodfellas and some of my initial thoughts when it came to it. But we'll come to that a little bit later, and we'll come back to Chris. First of all, Chris, talk us through your thoughts on Goodfellas.
I was quite excited when this won your poll on Instagram. The Goodfellas, to me, it's one of my favourite films ever. To me, this is a perfect film. Everything about it is just quality. I rewatched it today, and I was like a wee kid. I rewatch it all the time, but it's such a good story. In terms of a plot, it doesn't have much of a plot. It's just, I suppose, one guy's life. But the characters are each and every one of them are just on point. To me, it's Scorsese. He's peak. He might have made better films, but to me, that's his peak. As Goodfellas, it's so quotable. It's influenced popular TV as we know just now. In terms of having like an anti-hero and how they humanise proper bastards and villains. Like, these are guys that are gangsters, they're killing people, they're cheating on their lives with their goomas. It's like they are proper bad people. But we as viewers fucking love them. They're so relatable. And for a kind of story about such bad people, it's how Scorsese manages to get us to kind of fall in love with them is great. The use of food, the family kind of feel through it. The music, and it's great. I listen to the soundtrack all the time. It's proper brilliant. It's influenced so much. You look at like The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, Mad Men, like proper popular American TV shows, and how they've used an anti-hero and how they've done it. It's all taken. I mean, The Sopranos is an obvious one because it's the same kind of genre, but it's all taken from Goodfellas. It's done brilliant. Even like, to get proper geeky, like the way he uses the camera and stuff as well. Like that shot when they walk through the kitchen to the wee table, like, I love that. And it's something proper geek. It's a great, perfect song choice. It's a good use of the camera. It dives us right into it. Before then, you kind of gangster film, you think of The Godfather. It's all wide stuff. It's all kind of it's all dead portrait-y, and it's. The use of colours a bit different. This seems a bit more gritty. You're not following the top boss of the mafia. It's all kind of lower soldiers that are kind of fighting for something a bit different. It's great. It's a perfect film. Superb.
There we go. Who wants to follow that?
I just want to see one thing before I go into it. Just going back to Terminator 2, did anybody notice Dean Norris in Terminator 2?
Well, he plays a cop, doesn't he?
Aye, he does. And it's just when you mentioned Breaking Bad there, I meant to mention it earlier on, but I forgot that Dean Norris is in Terminator 2. Anyway.
I wouldn't have got that because Breaking Bad shit. Anyway, who wants to go next?
I'll go next. Oh, sorry, you go, Sean.
No, on you go.
Right, do it. Bundy, you go.
What Chris has said, again, I love this film too. I cannot fault it in any way at all. But I've obviously talked about some of the great acting within it. Obviously, the Joe Pesci and Lee Liotta are superb. But Kyle, you might correct me if I'm wrong right in your trivia, but this is Lorraine Bracco's first feature film as an actress. I could be right or wrong.
What? Who? Sorry, say it again.
Lorraine Bracco's.
I will find out. You keep talking away. I'll get it for you.
I've obviously been on the Sopranos podcast. I've maybe misheard it, but if it is, I think she's absolutely outstanding as well. It just obviously, that's what been in my mind watching it, just to maybe assess her acting in it, because obviously she's absolutely superb in Sopranos as well. Again, even touch that with it. Quite funny how many of the actual characters from Sopranos have got roles within this film as well. There's a few throughout it as well. Again, similar to what you've said, Chris, the soundtrack is superb, and any film that's got "Gimme Shelter" by the Rolling Stones or the Stone Roses on it, I just fall in love with that song every time I hear it. It's like one of the films that kind of, you want to be a gangster at times watching it. You think, oh, this is cool, you got all the money, you got the suits, you're nice dressed, but then you kind of see throughout it, like, maybe not quite achieved the American dream with when they get that big haul for the $6 million. But at that point, that's when obviously the world starts on having a part, and De Niro's character starts getting paranoid and just starts picking everyone off left, right, and centre, just so he can protect his own treasure at that point. Again, it's just, I just really genuinely can't fault this at all.
So just on your question about Lorraine, there was a couple of movies that she was in beforehand, but nothing big, nothing spectacular. So this would certainly be one of her earliest ones in her career. So Sean, you were fighting with Hunter to get in there. Jump in, go for it.
I just want to start by saying that I like Italian mob mafia films are not my thing whatsoever, and I watched this for the first time during the very first lockdown, and I thought it was just like kind of like same as The Godfather, just slow, and I just find that like kind of very boring, that kind of mafia mob film. But this is just brilliant. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's like as you guys have said, you can relate to almost every character in it. Like it's no like gangsters, but it's like people that are like them and all that, like loud and kind of brashy and stuff like that, and they are just arseholes and stuff. But I just think it's absolutely brilliant as well. Like I could watch this over and over again. It's only the second time that I'd seen it, because it was taken off Netflix, I believe, after I watched it the first time, and I never actually knew it was back on Amazon. So I was really glad that it was picked. But it's just brilliant. It's like, as Chris said as well, there's no much of a plot, but like when you just watch them develop. So obviously at the start, getting into it, he's getting the girls, he's got the life, he's got the money, and then you see they start to slowly like get greedy and they make mistakes, and people, just start kind of. You can see where it's going basically, but no, I just love it. Joe Pesci as well is just absolutely brilliant, and it's hard to believe that he was in Home Alone in the same year. They look like two different people. Like if I think of him in Home Alone, it's like he just looks completely different to what he looks like in this.
He's absolutely terrifying in this. Like proper scary.
He's the kind of guy that I would be scared of, like the most I've ever met in real life. Like somebody like him who like acts to be funny guy and all that, and then as soon as you like say something kind of that he doesn't like, he could just fucking anything like that, he could shoot you. Like that scene with the guy, again, I've never watched The Sopranos full way through it. Is it Christopher that's in The Sopranos, who was a barman in this?
Yeah.
Like that was just outrageous. And I hate Joe Pesci in this, like his character is an absolute dick. But it's stuff like that is just absolutely brilliant. It's just so unpredictable. But again, normally I've got something to say when we come on here every week. There's normally something that I don't like or I'm absolutely slaughtering a film, but I can't. There's nothing that I can fault in this whatsoever. It's just absolutely brilliant.
Hunter, I hope Laura's tuning in for all this positivity we're having across movies, or maybe we're just doing the same press. We're doing the same press, Chris. Sean, just on that scene you're talking about there, the how am I funny scene. So this is based on a real life event that happened to Joe Pesci, apart from the being shot. Whilst he was working in a restaurant, a young Pesci apparently told a mobster that he was funny, a compliment that was met with a less than enthusiastic response. So Pesci was telling this story to Scorsese, who then included it as part of this movie, and added in the being shot part, obviously.
It was more the scene that he talked about poker. That's a different scene.
Sorry, apologies.
But it's the same idea. So basically, it's just this wee kind of barman guy who's obviously working for the mob or whatever, and he's serving them drinks, playing poker, and then obviously the first time he gets shot because he was told to dance because he never got the drink, and then the second scene he was shot because they told him to go and fuck himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but just like, do you know what I mean? It's so like, it's just really good, really good. The scene you're talking about was good as well.
Just to finish the how I'm funny scene though, is that only Pesci and Ray Liotta were told what was going to happen in that scene. The rest of it was all legit reactions from the supporting cast. Nobody else knew that was going to kick off like that.
But I would say, it's even on that scene, like obviously with Ray Liotta's like over the top laughing at his story, you could tell that he's maybe finding some of it funny, but you could sense like a genuine fear, like I need to laugh along with this. And there's a couple of times you see him like laughing, it's just a bit over the top. And again, that is just building it the character of Joe Pesci's character, where everyone is in fear of him essentially, even his associates.
Just funny because to throw a spanner in here now, I don't like Ray Liotta as an actor. Don't think he's that great.
I agree.
Well, that's what I've written down as well. That I didn't think he was good at all in it.
I think he's good.
I'll let you go first, sorry, when you go. Or when you just fire.
Well, my movie's just going to be that, for me, is the weakest part of it. Which maybe gives to the due of how good everybody else in it, and the story's based around him, but I'd rather he got a lot less time on there. But I'm not going to knock it, because I do enjoy it. It is a really good movie. It's not my favourite gangster movie. I think, personally, that Casino is much better. But it is a really, really good movie. The only really thing I want to say about it is that Ray Liotta's not my favourite in it, but there's so many good characters in it as well, and it, like Chris was saying earlier, you can relate to a lot of stuff because it is a real life event based on Henry Hill's life, and you want to be you're totally entranced by it as well. I was a latecomer to Sopranos. Only watched that in the last 18 months or so, and I was definitely fascinated by it. And there's a lot of crossovers with the way it's not the way it's filmed, but the way it's acted, and it becomes a lot more entertaining from that as well. Lorraine, I always feel I'm going to fuck this up because I mess up names all the time, but Bracco, is that right, for Karen Hill's character?
Like Bracco or Bracco, I can't remember how to pronounce it.
She's ridiculously good in it. Like, she's my favourite by far. She's absolutely brilliant. I did see she was also she was nominated for a Best Actress in a Supporting Role, which she lost out to Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost. She should have definitely took that over Whoopi Goldberg.
The scary one is Scorsese lost out to Best Director to Kevin Costner.
Daniel like that.
I may be wrong, but I'm sure it was only Joe Pesci that won an Oscar for this.
You're absolutely spot on. Yeah, he was the only person that is Best Actor in a Supporting Role. It was nominated for 5 other categories, losing out on Best Picture and Best Director, both to Kevin Costner's Dances with Wolves.
Mental.
Daniel's an avid fan of Kevin Costner, so
I hate Dances with Wolves. It's shite. Dances with Wolves is shite. I hope we never have to watch that in this.
I've never ever seen it, so we'll add that to the list of what we need to watch then, guys. So, Burnsy, you crack on. You had something to say there, mate.
Aye, so following on this, I thought Ray Liotta. It was like it wasn't like I was kind of like, oh, he was shiting. It was more just the fact, like you touched on, that I thought De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Ray Bracco were awesome in it. Joe Pesci sort of played his character that well that you just hated him so much throughout it, and obviously when he gets comeuppance, that was what you're looking for the full film, but that was because his character was played so well throughout it. I liked the part where mainly at the start where they were using the narrator to sort of explain what was going on, because sometimes I come on here and I'm sort of struggling because it was that fast moving and there were so many characters. I could imagine if there wasn't that, then I would maybe struggle to try and understand who everyone is and what's all going on. So that added it for me. Added to the film for me. You sort of got an insight into the life, like a mafia and criminal lifestyle, that I thought was real interesting as well. When they got sent to prison, when Henry got sent to prison, they kind of glossed over that. But I think that was the best thing for the film, because there was so much still to come when he comes out of prison and gets involved in the drug dealings, etc. Whereas if they focused on his time in prison, it would have probably just made the film not as good as what it is, I think. The only sort of downside that I thought was the ending. I kind of thought I could see the ending coming. Like I guess it was meant to be a swerve, but for me, I kind of thought he's going to become an informant. It wasn't a surprise to me that's what happened. I don't know what they could have done for the ending to maybe make it more exciting, but that was something that when I got to the end, I was kind of like, oh, it finished. It was kind of damn squib was far too strong, but that's kind of, I was looking for something a wee bit more at the end. But apart from that, throughout it, I couldn't turn it off. I was right into the film throughout it, which as well, especially when Chris says that there wasn't really much a plot to it. or a storyline. So, which shows how well it was written, because there wasn't really anything. There wasn't a storyline from start to finish, but yet you couldn't turn it off. You felt invested in every single character, really. And I can't really fault it. Apart from that, it was definitely one of the best films that I've watched since I've started streaming, I would say.
Yeah, no, definitely is. A really, really good film. Everybody else got anything they want to add in, say about it?
I love how they go from pure violence to like a scene where they're sitting on a table having food. Like the bit where so it's Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro, and really all they're in the car, and then the boot goes and they're stabbing the guy in the boot, and it goes from that, and it's like the colour tone's all red, and it's proper violent, and then they go to Joe Pesci's mum, and it's Martin Scorsese's mum that plays her. And it's just, and then if I remember right, reading that they never gave her any sort of script for that scene when they're down at his mum's, and it's just her being her, and it goes from pure violence to just 4 people sat around a table just having food, and it's hilarious. It's proper funny.
It's proper psychotic as well, how calm and stuff they are, and they've just like literally went mental.
What they did do as well, I found just. Sorry, you want to say something, Daniel?
I was just going to give my thoughts on it, man. Like, I fucking love this as well. It's much like Terminator 2. I watched this a lot as a kid. My dad loved it. I had it on VHS and watched it to death, man. I think this is, I'm not saying it's the best gangster film, but it's definitely the slickest. It's definitely my favourite. It's the one that I enjoy watching the most. There's so many cool things about this. We're talking about all the Joe Pesci scenes, but my favourite one nobody mentioned is when he's in the bar and the guy says, "I'll go and shine my fucking shoes," and he's like, "Well, first he winds him up about being a shoe shiner, and then he just fucking snaps." But then he basically said that you'd only ever seen him really lose his temper, and then he would do something like all of a sudden, like it was just a reaction. Whereas at that point, he went away for fucking hours. And you can just imagine him sitting stewing on it. He came back intent to fucking kill him. And that was where you realised he wasn't just like somebody with a temper, he's a fucking maniac like this. I felt the opposite of Bungie, so when he died I was still sad. I'm on Chrissy's side. Like these guys felt more like the heroes to me, even though they were murderers and they were horrible cunts. I was sad when Tommy got whacked. Ideally I wanted him to win in the end. I wanted him to survive. But no, I absolutely loved it. There's not much else I can add on that you guys haven't already said. So get to.
So I feel like we're like fucking flying through this one tonight, guys, with all this positivity and we're.
Well, I would say, Daniel, on that scene where they're in and they're obviously with De Niro and Joe Pesci attack that guy in the bar. That should have been the last time we've seen Robert De Niro in a fight scene, because he was beginning to look a bit wooden in that 30 years ago, never mind before The Irishman came out.
No, The Irishman's way, that one's terrible.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Face, but you still got the body of an old man trying to punch somebody.
Well, listen, De Niro wasn't first choice for the role. Any educated guess who was offered it first? Sorry, I missed that. Daniel, who did you say?
Just the other one, Al Pacino.
Who else said Al Pacino?
Me too.
There we go. You all get points for it. Al Pacino was, of course, offered out that the role. He turned it down because he didn't want to be typecast.
That went well.
That went well, especially when he took on his next role that he took on was Big Boy Caprice and Dick Tracy.
Oh, yeah.
So Ray Liotta actually turned down the part of Harvey Dent in Batman in 1989 in order to make this movie. And the people that were lined up to play Henry Hill, there's some cracking names on this list. John Travolta. See that working?
No. Although, to be fair, like, Tarantino brought him back to Resurrection with Pulp Fiction, so you know what I mean?
I'm taking that back. I think he'd have been alright in that.
So, very close to getting it. Alec Baldwin.
No.
And the 3 other people that apparently auditioned for it was Sean Penn.
Good answer.
Tom Cruise. And everybody's favourite. No, it's not Keanu Reeves. It's Nicolas Cage.
Oh, yes. I'd have paid to watch that.
That's Nick Cage in this when he's taking the cocaine and that. He'd be method
I
acting.
know, completely over the top. That would actually make it better.
Okay, Nick Cage would be amazing in Goodfellas.
And the last piece that I've got here, that according to the real Henry Hill, who the film was based on, Joe Pesci's portrayal of Tommy was between 90 to 99% accurate, with the only exception being that Tommy was massively built. He's a big guy, and Joe Pesci plays him, so there's a bit. So, only bit of trivia I thought was quite cool on that. There's absolutely hundreds to read about Goodfellas on IMDb if you really do want to get sunk into your trivia for it, and I wasn't going to give you millions of bits of information to read.
I don't want to steal your trivia thunder, but I read today that so Joe Pesci's mum is Scorsese's mum, and Scorsese's dad is the person that shoots him and kills him.
There you go. There you go. That'll be in the plethora of information that's there, guys, to go find out. It's definitely worth reading.
That's just jobs for the boys, that, eh?
Get your on, Darren.
Is that not all Scorsese's films are? Jobs for the boys.
Aye.
Right.
Have to go. That's so done.
Let's jump into some scores then. Daniel, talk to us about Instagram first of all. How did Instagram take to Goodfellas?
This got a 4.8 overall on Instagram. Very well liked. I think it's just one of those. Everyone you speak to loves it.
There we go. 4.8. Chris, we'll come to you first of all. In your hatred of giving scores, give us a score.
Again, to me, it's one of my favourite films. I said earlier on, Scorsese's probably made better films, but this is my favourite by quite a distance. 5 easy.
Happy days.
Nothing.
A big 5 coming in there as well. And do you know what, Chris? It's actually quite refreshing that our Instagram people actually selected 2 good movies for us to watch. Normally they stitch it. Normally
I
they
like that.
stitch us up.
Guys' pages that you don't pick, you let people pick. So a lot of the times you've watched absolute dog shit, but it's good.
See, that's why people think that we just hate films. It's because our community picks shite for us to watch. That's why.
I like writing about films that I hate. Not that was shit, but because you try and get into the nitty picky as to why you didn't like it. That's just to me. That's what's watching the film shit. Like talking about it, it's just as entertaining as, or just as enjoyable as talking about a film you like as well. I like them both.
Oh, you should have been here when we were watching The Last Airbender and Mega Shark versus Colossus. You would have loved that.
Oh, that was both in 1 week. That was before.
I mean, you actually chose them, Kyle. That was the Instagram. You actually made us.
Just remember that Sean scored them, both of them higher than Star Wars.
Okay, it's pathetic. Don't. You'll set me off. Will set me off. Right, Hunter, you give us your score since you're talking.
It's swithering between a 4.75 and a 5. And I was down scoring it because obviously I think the only 5 I've given on this possibly was for Parasite, and again it was a shock value for first viewing that scored it so high. But I think, if I'm being honest, if I'd watched this for the first time I would give it a 5, so I've got to give it a 5.
Big 5 coming from Hunter as well. Daniel?
Yeah, I do love this. It's up there. It's one of my favourite films. I'm giving it a 4.75.
4.75 coming in from Daniel. Burnsy?
I'm just going to touch on what Daniel was saying quickly, is that when I was saying about Tommy DeVito, it was more just that it was acted that well that you just wanted. I didn't want all the rest of them to die or whatever. It was just that character, because he played it so well that I just wanted him to get done, because he came across as that much an arsehole. But the rest of them, as you quite rightly said, even though they're meant to be bad guys and whatever, you felt really invested in the characters and you wanted them to get off scot-free. I'm going to give it a 4.5. As I say, it was just more the ending was sort of missing something from me, which I don't know what, but that's how I just felt at that point. And how we also touched on, Kyle, how I didn't really like Ray Liotta in it. That's only 2 downsides for me, so a 4.5 for me.
There we go. And I'm just going to back you up with the exact same score, purely based on very similar to what you said, and the fact that I think Casino's slightly better. Sean?
A 5 for me.
Jesus Christ, guys, what's going on here? We've not had a single score with the number 3 at the front.
Number 1. Is this the new number 1 movie?
Let's find
I
out.
will be honest.
Burnsy, when you're ready.
So that gives us a 4.79 overall.
A 4.
The new number 1 movie, man.
A 4.78, and it does indeed take this to number 1. So it's a 4.79. Parasite was 4.65. So Chris, you've actually knocked all the other movies down. Sorry.
Parasite was number 1.
Yes.
Aye.
Come on. I mean, this is why I don't enjoy doing scores. Parasite's good, but I suppose you can't kind of talk about longevity if it's only been out a year or two. Parasite's good, but it's no fucking good, fellas.
Parasite. Well, that's it. You've come in, you've slapped all the scores, and you've given 2 movies into your top 5.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, guys. So that wraps up those 2 movies anyway. So, we'll say a 4.79 coming from Goodfellas is the new number 1. And then Terminator 2, I actually forgot what movie I was going to talk about there. Terminator 2 coming in at number 5 with a 4.33. So I'd hate to be the person that selected the movies that we're following this up with next week, because there's only going to be one way that we go with next week's movies that I'll put up on the screen just now.
I've just remembered what they are.
So the movies for next week, these were Burnsy's choices. Now, Chris, you won't know, but before we started doing this whole movie club thing, we actually mainly only set it up to push Burns into watching films, because I think he had only watched Goal. There's only one Jimmy Grimble.
And Goal 2.
And Goal 2.
Still not watched Goal 3 yet.
I'd watched that movie Ally McCoy was in too.
That was that good.
Oh,
Still like glory.
Ali McCoy's playing for Celtic.
Aye.
Jackie McQuillan, baby.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Anyway, some big actors in that. So we've got the movies up here on the screen. Burnsy did give us a surprisingly good list of films, but the ones that were selected in one were Gone Girl and Pulp Fiction. So,
Yeah, 2 good ones.
I don't know how
I'm slightly worried about Gone Girl, to be honest. I think that I've seen it once, and I think when I watched it the first time, it was really good, but I think it's because I've seen that many high quality movies. I don't know how that one will fare, and I've not seen Pulp Fiction, so I'm not looking forward to that.
I can't wait to absolutely slaughter another Tarantino film.
Tarantino bingo, that's what we should just rename this.
Honestly, it's just fucking, it's no morons reviewing movies, it's morons reviewing Tarantino.
I know. So we're only going to have about 3 Tarantino movies left.
Hopefully we didn't get to see any more of them. You've seen one, you've seen them
some
all.
more feet, Sean.
I can't wait to see more.
the funny thing is, the way the poster for Pulp Fiction, you should have just took the shoes off her and left her sitting with her feet up there for Sean.
There's some good feet scenes in this one for you, Sean.
Oh, don't, I'm already cringing at the dancing. Anyway, so we've got Gone Girl and Pulp Fiction coming up there for the movies to watch next week. We are also going to be adding in A Fault in Our Stars. As promised, we were going to add in the partners that didn't quite make the cut when it came to Partners Week. So A Fault in Our Stars is going to be added to the list. So I'm expecting some emotional boys in the chat next week. Before we then start to wrap up, we will spin the wheel, as always, to see what's going to come up for the next movie. Any particular categories you guys are looking for to come on the wheel?
I'd like to see what Daniel's going to pick.
Daniel, or Guilty Pleasures.
Got to pick. I mean, Chris has never been here before, and he's got to pick before me. I've been here for the start.
You're literally the last person that gets to go. It just, this is one of these things. It's a bit like True Romance, where you just never get selected.
Aye, I'm never going to get a go, and we're never going to watch True Romance. Those are the 2 things that are going to happen, man.
Yeah.
Well, let me put the wheel up on the screen just now, and we'll get it spun. I would love for us to get Marvel or Disney, something that Sean's going to love. So, spinning right now. Where will it go? It's coming round. We've passed Marvel. We have landed on British movies.
That'll be alright.
British movies. Chris, is there any movies off the top of your head that would fall?
Same spot again. Same spot as or something.
I hope for a cheeky wee Trainspotting and Snatch would be good. They're my top two British that I can think of. You don't get much better than Trainspotting and Snatch.
Or they could get Sexy Beast back on the list as well.
There's only one Jimmy Grimble can go on the list, Burnsy.
That's true. I think Trainspot made it to the semi-finals on my one, I think.
It did.
Final vote.
It definitely did. Guys, well listen, that brings us towards the end of the stream. So the movies that are going to be up on the Instagram going forward for the next week will be British movies. We'll get them up within hopefully the next day or two. I just want to say a big thanks to Chris for joining us. Please jump in and give him a follow on his Instagram account. I'm going to put that up on the screen just now so you can see it. There is Chris's Instagram. What we watching tonight, he's going to review movies like he says earlier, and he'll put them up there but with no ratings so that he doesn't doesn't get angry with what they're getting scored on there just now. But again, thank you very much for coming along. I hope you've enjoyed it. Something a little bit different from what you're doing at the moment anyway.
No, thanks for having us, guys. I was looking forward to it and having a good time. I appreciate it.
Awesome, guys. Well, just before we head off, of course, I will send you across to another Twitch streamer at the moment. Please hang fire, jump into the guys' stream, say thanks, say hi from us, and give them a follow. But thank you very much. Have a good night, guys. Take care. Bye.
Cheers, Billy.